Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at Sony A7C. The A7C is Sony's new full-frame camera which basically addresses the needs of modern content creators. It uses internal components that we already know from other Sony cameras, but it is still an important camera. In this video we will take a look at the performance and the feature set of A7C, and we will try to find out who should consider getting one. Unlike the rest of A7 lineup, the C is a rangefinder style camera. I generally like digital rangefinders because it is the more space-saving option and it allows the whole package to be even smaller. Sony is still the king of packaging, and I was once again surprised by the size of A7C. It is noticeably smaller than the A7 III, which is already a very compact package. It is the smallest full-frame interchangeable lens camera on the market, and it only weighs 509 grams, so it is super portable. Size to performance ratio is definitely one of the biggest strengths of the A7C, and the packaging is quite amazing. The build quality is actually very good. It still uses a magnesium frame, and that silver part is also metal. The build quality of the plastics is very good as well. Even the screen hinge feels pretty solid. I also like that the ports are covered with proper doors instead of those hanging covers. Despite that it is an entry-level full-frame camera, I have no complaints about the build quality, and I can actually say that it feels like a premium product. The design of A7C is very minimalistic and quite controversial. I think that it looks better in person, and it is fine by me. This is the silver version, which is in my opinion the better looking version in person. It is also available in black. A7C uses 24 megapixel backside illuminated IMX410 full frame sensor. I've been using this sensor for the past 3 years in A7 III, and I can say that the image quality and output of A7C is identical to A7 III. And that is a very good thing. The dynamic range and the low light capabilities of this sensor are outstanding. It gives you a ton of flexibility for editing, especially in challenging HDR situations such as sunsets. You can use it up to ISO 12800 with a low amount of quite naturally looking noise. Even ISO 25600 is usable if necessary. Importantly, it can also get the colors right even at high ISO. An advantage of a 24 megapixel full-frame sensor is low pixel density, which means that it is not very demanding when it comes to the lens quality. Even if you pair it with an optically average lens, such as Sony FE28mm f2, you will get very nice results. If you pair it with an excellent lens, such as my favorite Sony FE24mm f1.4 or 20mm f1.8, you will get full sharpness even with a wide open aperture. The only limitation of this sensor is that it can't do full sensor readout at 60 frames per second. That means that the cameras equipped with this sensor, including Panasonic S1H, can't shoot full sensor 4K 60p. Other than that, it is a great sensor and it provides excellent image quality for both stills and video. Just like other new Sony cameras, A7C is among the most accurate cameras when it comes to color reproduction, together with Fuji X-Trans 4 cameras. In the past 2 years, I started to use unedited picture profile of pictures and videos a lot more on Sony cameras. These just look really nice. I also like Sony's automatic white balance the most. The autofocus hardware is basically the same as with the A7 III, but the A7C uses the latest software, which makes the autofocus basically perfect. The focus acquisition is instant and it is 100% reliable in any conditions. The real-time tracking works great as well. It won't lose the subject no matter what. It is definitely good enough for any kind of sports, and there is the eye autofocus as well, of course. In video it works just as well, but it is important to set the autofocus track sense and dry speed according to your preferences. Unlike on the older Sony cameras, here you have 7 steps for autofocus speed and 5 steps for the responsiveness. Real-time eye tracking in video is an incredible piece of technology, and honestly, it gets me every time that I test any Sony camera that has it. It works incredibly well, so it definitely won't be out of focus. A big improvement over A7 III is the touch tracking option, which is a very convenient way to select an object for the tracking. Overall, the autofocus is a huge strength of A7C, and it is the best autofocus system of all cameras that I've ever tested. Regarding the video, A7C can shoot full sensor 4K video downsampled from 6K in 24 and 25p. In 30p there is a slight crop. It captures a ton of detail and it looks great overall. A7C has a low-pass filter which makes the video look a bit more natural, and it gets rid of the moire. There is some amount of rolling shutter, but it is not terrible by any means. It can also be completely removed in editing. There is no 4K 60p and no 10-bit recording. Those would be definitely nice to have, but considering the intended use and the size of this camera, I think that it is acceptable. A7C is still suitable for a lot of projects, and I have personally never had major issues with 8-bit 4K files on Sony. If you use my favorite picture profile 8 with Cine 4 Gamma, you will also get great semi-flat footage suitable for post-production. I can still recommend the A7C for any kind of YouTube stuff, travel videos, news gathering, and so on. If you need the highest video specs with ProRes RAW, 4K 60 or even 120, you will have to take a look at A7S III. Despite the size, A7C still has both mic input jack and headphone output jack for audio monitoring. A7C has an in-body image stabilization rated for 5 stops. First of all, having any in-body image stabilization in a full-frame camera of this size is great. It provides very good body size to sensor size to performance ratio. The in-body image stabilization behaves very predictably and there is no warping. It is sufficient for static shots up to about 50mm. A7C can also store gyro data that can be used to stabilize the footage during post-production. I think that this is the future of stabilization. For example, Insta360 One R uses this method with fantastic results. On A7C it works pretty well with ultra-wide lenses and it makes a big difference for vlogging. At longer focal lengths it is a hit and miss. I hope that Sony will work on this and it will be more useful in the future. Regarding the handling, here it is obviously a compromise between having all of the control elements and maintaining small body size. The grip is actually pretty decent. It is small, but the handling with small and medium-sized lenses is completely fine. I've also used it with 70 to 200mm f4, which is not ideal, but it didn't really cause me any discomfort. It was also fine with Sigma 24 to 70mm f2.8. There are still 2 control dials and exposure compensation dial, which is very nice. All of the necessary buttons are still here, but there is only one custom button. Fortunately, the function menu is fully customizable. It has 12 slots and you will probably use that to change most of the settings on the go. The main menu is what it is. It is pretty complicated and not very well structured. There are some improvements over A7 III, like the graphic guide for function buttons or the possibility to see ISO value all the time while shooting video. A7C users probably won't have to use it much though after they initially set up the camera. There is also My menu where you can put the settings that are the most important for you. The Viewfinder uses a 2.36 million dot panel with 0.59 times magnification, and it is not the best viewfinder. The sharpness is actually pretty good, but it is quite small. That is understandable because there isn't enough space for a larger viewfinder. Some users will still appreciate having any kind of viewfinder. My personal choice for A7C would actually be no viewfinder at all. Instead of that, A7C could have had a better display. This is a well-known 921,000 3-inch panel from A7 III. It is usable, but by 2021 standards, it is below average. At least the brightness is sufficient in sunny weather setting. The screen is fully rotating. As you probably know, I don't like rotating screens, but considering what is the target audience of A7C, I understand this choice. Despite that the A7C is an entry-level full-frame, it can still shoot 10 frames per second with mechanical shutter and autofocus continues. That is sufficient for pretty serious action shooting. That in combination with great autofocus and lens selection make the A7C a very capable sports and wildlife camera. A7C only has one SD card slot, but it is okay at this body size. Fortunately, it is UHS 2 compatible, which is great, because writing to UHS 1 card can significantly slow down the whole camera. I also like the placement of the SD card. It is much better than in the battery compartment. A7C also uses NP FZ100 batteries. The battery life is fantastic. It is rated for 740 shots, which is by far the best battery life out of all competitors. Realistically, you can get more than 2000 shots or 3 hours of 4K video on a single charge. Owning just one battery will actually be enough for a lot of A7C users. It is also possible to charge the battery in camera through USB-C. As I've explained in my charging kit video, I don't do that, but it is an important backup option for me personally. I mostly charge these batteries using Nightcore USN4 Pro charger, which is the most reliable option. If I need something smaller for traveling, I use this generic dual-slot USB-C charger, which also works fine. Together with the A7C, I have also tested the new 28 to 60mm kit lens. This is a remarkably small and surprisingly usable lens, but more on that in a separate video. The E-mount lens selection is another strength of A7C. There are plenty of first-party and third-party options. I especially like the combination of A7C and 20mm G and 24mm GM. These are both very small and optically outstanding prime lenses. I also think that Tamron 70 to 28 and 28 to 75 will be very popular with A7C. E-mount lens selection is still the most complete. You can get all kinds of exotic glass as well as budget options, so that is a huge advantage. To sum up, I think that the A7C is a very good camera for intended purposes. As I've explained in my ZV-1 review, Sony uses a hyper-pragmatic approach to configure their cameras. A7C is a repackage and it doesn't bring any major innovation, but in my opinion, it is the most meaningful repackage on the market. There are two main groups of users who should consider A7C. The first one are content creators who want compact, simple to use all-round camera with flawless autofocus, and they also want that desirable full-frame look. The second group are prosumers or even professionals who just want the smallest possible Sony full-frame camera. A7C is especially appealing for travel photography. I actually belong to this second group, so I am considering getting the A7C. It basically has all of the strengths of A7 III, although it sacrifices controls and handling for portability. I also appreciate the improved autofocus software and gyro stabilization data. The video specs are not market leading, but still adequate for the class and intended use. My only major complaints are the display and the viewfinder. Overall, it is a very capable and very portable hybrid camera suitable for intended purposes, which means that I can highly recommend it. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section and see you next time.